Welcome to Primetime. I am your host, Hunter Chambliss, and I'm joined by my co-host, Chad and Kerri. How's it going, guys?
Going well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, it's going great. Fantastic. It's going great. That opening is really chilling.
I hope so. Yes, today we are doing our part 1 of our Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 3 tier ranking from S to C. I just finished the first half, so we're doing from season 3 episode 1 and to season 3 episode 11 Gingerbread. So I'm super excited to talk about this. So guys, let's give our opening thoughts, our non-spoiler thoughts on just episodes 1 to 11, in case people haven't seen the rest of the season like me. So guys, go ahead and start with your non-spoiler thoughts.
Kerri?
Sure, I'll go ahead. This is a fantastic season of Buffy. I think most people rate it probably second to season 2. It is, in my ranking, I guess that's probably, well, I don't know, actually, because season 5 is really strong, but it's definitely up there. It's in my top 5 for sure. Maybe my top 3. I don't know. It's hard to rank Buffy seasons because I love them all so much. This one, though, we get some really, at least one. I think it's mainly one really exciting new character. We get a pretty cool overarching villain this season. And I think this season consistently has really strong episodes. I am still struggling with what to even put in my C tier. We're gonna see. I don't know. But
I do just want to throw in there, Hunter. I'm trying to remember. Has the big villain been introduced to you yet? Like, do you know who the big villain is?
So we got introduced early on to a guy in a limo, but he got pretty much dusted.
That's what I was.
Oh my God! Is it?
I was making sure you didn't spoil anything because Hunter. I think it starts in this next half. So that's why I'm glad you weren't specific.
I guess it is. I'm looking at the episode titles. And
yeah.
I guess it is really packed into the second half.
So anyways, you can continue. I just wanted to be aware about spoilers.
Yeah, good
for
call.
Hunter and any other people who haven't seen the rest of the season.
Compared to season 2, season 2 has some of my favorite episodes in the entire show, but it also has some of my least favorite episodes in the entire show. Season 3, it's definitely more like each episode, I think, is really strong, and maybe none of them quite hit it out of the park, I think, the way that some of the season 2 episodes do. But I think overall as a season, just each individual episode, including the Monster of the Week episodes, are just fantastic. That's all I got.
I have similar thoughts to Kerri. I mean, like I've been saying, I don't really have one singular season that definitely stands out to me because I love them all so much. I love pretty much every episode of Buffy. I'm one of those people. But if I do have to say preferences, I do have them. I do think season 2 is fantastic. I'm really partial to season 6, and I'm very excited for Hunter to get there. I will say season 3 is in my top 7. It's a really great season. It is another one where they're still in high school. I think you can gather with the amount of seasons that there are. They're not always going to be in high school.
Yeah.
There's only 4 years in high school, but
there's a problem if you end up in high school after 7 years.
This first half of the season, I'll allude to what Hunter's going to say is that there's no terrible episodes in this. I think there's one that I would definitely rank lowest, and then there's one that is definitely an S tier for me, easily. But the rest, I would say, will probably hover around A and B because there's a lot of really fun stuff in there, a lot of really interesting things. Like you said, you introduce a really great new character in the first whatever, and then just seeing Buffy come back from what she had to deal with in season 2 was very interesting as well. I love this first half. I think I love the second half even more, as is kind of common with a lot of Buffy seasons, is it just gets better and better and better, throughout the whole season. But there's sometimes just like one fantastic episode or two or four or five that are strewn throughout the season that you go, oh my God, that was a particularly fantastic episode. But yeah, I love season 3. I love everything they do in it, and I'm very excited to discuss it with you. Hunter, what did you think of the first half of season 3?
I absolutely loved it. This is no surprise. I am a huge fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer now. Can't wait to finish it up. Um, yeah, the one thing I love about this season, at least in the first half, is how it feels like a continuation to the end of season 2. It doesn't just ignore everything past in season 2. Like, and that's one thing I actually love more about this show is that it seems like when consequences happen, they linger for a long time on certain characters. That
Yeah.
it makes it feel more realistic, where it's like, okay, she did something wrong, but now she's having to pay the consequences of it. Not just one episode, but multiple episodes going forward.
Yeah.
And there's always little stuff that the cast will bring up that will remind you of stuff that happened earlier, like earlier seasons, and you're like, oh yeah, that happened. And then kind of still paying for the sins, or gratitude or whatever. It makes the world feel continuous in a way, which I love.
Yeah, always love hearing your takes, specifically Hunter, because you're coming into this fresh. You've only seen all these episodes once,
Mm-hmm.
and Kerri and I have been watching these since she was, I think, 10 and I was like 12 when we both started, or 11, something like that. So yeah, we're pretty young when we started watching this show, and we've seen it many times over the years. So to hear your fresh take and your kind of like critical, because we watched this when we were kids, so we weren't like
Yeah.
really critical about the show, but to see you have this take where you're like, what this is like as a filmmaker or as a showrunner, Josh was able to have these themes continue, and stuff like that. So it's interesting to hear from that perspective as well. And I've started as an adult, started recently watching these episodes in a similar way, where there's a specific episode, I won't say anything about it, but at the end of season 4, that I'm like, that episode is like such a fantastically like directed episode. So you start to see these things as you're an adult. You're like, wow, that was really well done. Like Lie to Me, that like we were talking about in last season, that was like, we were like, wow, that episode. I know Hunter didn't like it as much as we did, but like that one specifically, we're just like, with the writing in that episode and what they did for that character to make him so complex and stuff like that. Now you're talking about like character building and character development from the stuff where you're talking about the themes and the characters. Stuff with the characters just lingering on, I think, is definitely a big strength of the show. Very great point, Hunter, especially with Buffy and like what she has to go through after, spoiler alert for the last season, after killing Angel and sending him to hell. So there's a lot of that in this. So yeah.
All right, so if you guys are ready to get into the actual ranking, we will start with Kerri to nominate the first episode and where she wants the episode to be in the tier ranking.
I wonder where she's gonna start.
I might not start at the beginning because I don't know where a lot of these are gonna fall.
If you haven't watched a lot of these Buffy episodes that we've done, since we've done 4 so far, Kerri will normally start at the very first episode, and we'll just keep going.
It's a running theme.
But she can do whatever she wants.
Honestly, I can't. I'm still deciding how I'm gonna do these. So I'm gonna start with my C tier.
Okay.
And it hurts me to put this in the C tier, but I have to choose one, and it was a very difficult decision. I'm going with Beauty and the Beast, which I regret to say because it has the end sequence where Buffy finally lets go of Angel and puts the ring in the spot where she killed him. That is like one of my favorite scenes in all of Buffy. But the rest of the episode, as compared to the everything else in this season. Just not my favorite. I do really like, the messaging is good. It's about an abusive relationship, and it turns out that there's really, are they supernatural? I can't even remember, but
That's the werewolf episode, yeah. Or the werewolf
it's like a
type
Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of episode.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a better
Yeah.
example. Yeah.
Honestly, though, except for that end scene, the rest of this episode for me is, I don't know. It's just not as strong for some reason. I don't really love, we get to know Scott and then his friends, this boyfriend and girlfriend, and the boyfriend is abusive, these side characters. We spend a lot of time with them. And I don't know, something about it for me just doesn't quite hit the spot for me. I guess maybe because most of Buffy is a metaphor for issues, like the demons are metaphors and the circumstances are metaphors. This is a little bit like it's in your face. This is directly like, what it is. I don't know. It's hard to explain it. And it is really, I do really like this episode. And it is mostly because I could not put any of the other episodes into C tier. And that's why I proposed this for C tier. I'll be fine if it goes somewhere higher.
Okay. For me, there is one episode that I would put in C tier. I'd probably put this in maybe lower B tier. Because as you said, it's very in your face with the message, but that's kind of what I like about it. I like when media can put spotlight on something that's important, but also not make it too depressing, because you still get, Buffy and her friends, you still get that great interaction, but it's taken into more of a serious tone of like, this is what an abusive, like, boyfriend could look like, especially when it comes to like the Jekyll and Hyde situation, where 1 minute he's good, 1 minute, the next he's hitting you, or saying that it's your fault. I like when shows can take that and give it like almost like a supernatural twist too, where it's like, oh, okay, that's where they're going with this, and it kind of makes sense at the end. Chad?
Yeah. Well, I gotta admit, this was the obvious C tier for me as well. And it's just because, like, I mean, Kerri made a good point. Like, there is some really great, like, Buffy Angel stuff. So, I mean, I guess another spoiler alert: Angel comes back after season 2.
That's fine.
And it actually happens. The episode prior to this, I believe, that he actually comes back at the very end, and then this is the one,
Faith, Hope, and Trick,
where she realizes that he's back and she accepts that he's
then
back.
This is definitely the C tier one for
but
me. I don't even feel conflicted anymore.
There is some really cool Buffy Angel stuff. In fact, I believe, isn't Angel the one that helps stop the threat in this episode?
Yes,
he is.
Yeah.
He's like all ravenous and like feral. And it's like really interesting kind of thing to see him come back, see how he was affected from hell. And so it's just, but that's a whole thing throughout like a lot of these different episodes. Like it just persists and they just keep showing him getting better and better. You have the different dynamics that we'll talk about later in other episodes. But this one specifically, like the actual monster of the week part of it, I think is the weakest part, because it is a little bit extreme. And I think I keep thinking this episode is in season 2. So I was talking about this episode partially when we were doing season 2, and I got it confused with a different episode. But this one, I think this one and the one where they're bringing the Frankenstein brother back are the two that I think are like very early on season 2, season 3 ones that I'm like, on rewatch, they're not as strong as they were maybe the first time when you realize what's happening and stuff like that. It is cool to see like a Jekyll and Hyde type monster. I mean, if we were to do this for Supernatural, we'd get every single lore thing known to man, because they have 15 seasons, 20 plus episodes per season. It's just insane. They even did like a Scooby-Doo thing, but
which
the
was
way
amazing.
yeah, the way they did Jekyll and Hyde, I thought was pretty cool in this, talking about like abusive relationships and stuff like that. But you guys made a good point where you said that it's kind of like in your face with it a little bit. So yeah, I wouldn't place this anywhere below C tier because I still think it's a really good episode.
Yeah.
But if I had to put any in C tier, it would probably be this one. I'm very interested to see what Hunter would rank below it. Because I may or may not agree. I'm not sure, but especially since he just watched this
Yeah.
half of the season.
All right,
so yeah, here for me.
We're doing the one S tier and the one C tier, correct?
That if we can, if you want. I mean,
That's fine with me.
Okay.
I would maybe want 2 S tiers for the second half, but
yeah, we can
can always
discuss
add
the
an extra
second
one.
half later. Yeah. One C tier, one S tier works for me, and the rest I can
same.
fit into A and B.
Yeah. Same.
All right, sweet. All right, so on to Chad for his next pick.
I wasn't prepared for this. Okay. No, I have my ranking here. I don't want to shoot my shot for the S tier just yet. I'm going to go for a very, very high A tier. Let me see where this is in the. Okay, it's just a couple episodes later, but this is a very, very fun one, and this is a very high A tier for me, almost S tier. Band Candy. This is like one of the most fun episodes ever. We get this isn't the first time that we see good old Ethan Rain, but we see that he's working with like some sort of like candy company to make everybody like be children. Why does he do it again?
He's planning something that he needs all the adults to be preoccupied so he can get away with it. Maybe he's trying to raise the chaos demon, or no, he already used the chaos demon.
Go ahead and look that up if you can.
Yeah.
But regardless of whatever Ethan's trying to do in that episode, everything that unfolds is so fun. You get to see different sides of a lot of the adults who are normally just, acting all stuck up and adult like, especially Giles. You get to see Giles kind of like break loose. You get to see Joyce break loose. And then Principal Snyder is in this one of the only times he's ever kind of likable because he's hilarious in the episode.
Noticed that. I hate that guy.
Like when he's in the car with Buffy and she doesn't really know how to drive that well or whatever, and she's driving, she's like, Summers, you drive like a spaz. And just stuff like that, Giles courting Joyce and trying to be real cool, and he's just so different than the stuffy librarian that he normally is. And like he's like, I used to be in Pink Floyd or whatever he's talking about with the band, and just acting like so cool. It's like, you want that scarf or that jacket or whatever, and he like breaks into the shop to get Joyce whatever she wants. He's just like a bad boy. So there's a lot of really fun character stuff with that, and it's just a really interesting idea for a candy to turn all these adults into children. And then you got to see like the actual children kind of turn into the adults a little bit more and try to save the day, because Giles isn't there to help out. So everybody else has to kind of pick up the the researching and trying to figure out how to solve this problem. And it's really cool every time they have an episode where they take some sort of like Scooby, as they're called, the Scooby Gang, out of commission, or they do stuff where like maybe one of them is not a good guy, like they did with the Pack and Xander. And then you got to find that whole dynamic. Like, how do we work without that one character? Maybe even Buffy one time might be not the best either. So, this one's very fun. High A tier for me.
I'm going to agree with. Oh, no, wait. Does Hunter go or do I go?
No.
I think it's Hunter.
Hunter goes. You go ahead. Hunter.
We'll go around.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead, Hunter.
Somebody go, please.
Kerri, go ahead, please.
Okay. I will agree with high A tier. I debated whether to actually put this in my S tier as well.
Nice.
Because we get a lot of comedic moments in Buffy. I think this whole episode, though, is pretty comedic. And I know it's just a fun time. I love seeing Giles and Joyce, like, acting like these silly teens, and Principal Snyder. It's just a really fun episode. We get to see Ethan again. That's pretty fun. I don't know. I don't have much more to say actually than what you said, Chad. I just think this is a great episode, and I just love kind of the things that come out of this, like Giles and Joyce.
I do. I just read, but I remembered this as I was reading it, that it ends up very funny too, because Buffy's like, "Thank God I stopped you guys before you guys did anything weird," and then Giles and Joyce like look at each other like,
What are you talking about here? I love the fact that Giles just went immediately James Dean with the jacket, the white T-shirt.
He's like Fonzie. He's like
he went the slick back hair. He went completely like James Dean in this episode.
But that's how he probably was when he was younger. So
exactly, yeah. I probably would have put this in a high B tier if I'm being honest, because again, it just feels like it didn't progress any of the story enough for me to put it high enough. But it is definitely a fun episode, so I don't mind putting it in A tier. Cool. So let's see Bandcamp.
Band Candy.
Oh, Bandcamp.
This is an American Pie Buffy.
Yeah. Same actors in both of them, so.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
All right, Band Candy. All right, so moving on to me. Do I want to go the one that... You know what? I'll go with this one in the B tier. I'm going to go Gingerbread. Okay. I like the idea of, as I said in the chat, a witch hunt with actual witches is brilliant to me. Yeah. But the fact that, like, Joyce, out of all the times, has to pick this one to go on a bring your mother to work day with Buffy, and the whole, like, starting Moo, I think it's called, the mothers again.
Yeah. The occult, yeah.
Yeah, occult.
Yep.
Like, hilarious, but then, like, kind of taking over the town with the what's it, Hansel and Gretel is hilarious with the kids. And then the way they kind of take the town and split it apart is interesting, because it's like, I get what they're saying, but the parents are taking it too far on the other end of, like, being too protective. And now you get the whole it's under a spell thing. I think there are a lot of clever moments in this episode, but the reason why I put it at B is because Joyce was so annoying in this episode that every time she was on screen, I didn't like her on screen. And that kind of took it from an A to a B for me. Guys?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Gingerbread is an episode. Now that I'm thinking about it, though, I think this is also kind of a brilliant episode, even though I understand and I agree with you that it is a very hard watch, because you have characters like Joyce that you really like, that is kind of like a bad guy in your eyes because of what she and the other moms are doing. Hate to say, if your name is Karen, I'm sorry, but they're being a bunch of Karens in this episode. But they're kind of like under the spell of these demons or whatever that are charading as Hansel and Gretel. But you can see, and we've seen this in real life, about how, like, when there's violence against children or, anything like that, and definitely it's understandable for sure because it's terrible, violence against children, but you see that the parents just take it so far, and they just like really like band together to try to take anybody they see. Obviously they pick the wrong people. They go, overboard with it, like you said, and it just goes so crazy. But they're kind of like under the influence of these like demon things. I don't think that they're necessarily all in their right minds, This is on the first and maybe only episode that we see Willow's mom, which is
it is.
pretty,
Yeah,
I don't want to spoil it just in case, but but yeah, don't try to be like, when are we going to see Willow's mom again? But yeah, this is the only episode we see her, and that other like witch boy, which is kind of interesting. Like, there's a boy witch in this. Don't they say like, wait, aren't you a warlock or something like that? I can't remember if there's like a line like that in there, but yeah, it does get really extreme. It's very the stakes feel real. Like, I don't think anybody's ever really worried if they're actually going to kill Willow, but like, Amy and the other boy, Michael, I think his name is. Maybe so it's a very interesting episode. I really like it, but I don't necessarily love watching it either because it is a hard watch. I'm going to say that I'm fine with this being B tier, but if Kerri puts it in A tier, then I would escalate it because I'm straddling this line. I would say high B tier, low A tier. That doesn't put pressure on you. It's just whatever you feel like.
I feel like it does because you're going to be the decision maker then.
Well, if you went first, then I was going to be like, well, I'm going to see what Kerri's going to say.
I would put this in A tier. I really like this episode.
Okay.
Then A
this is going to be really hard because I feel like most of them are going to be A tier. So I'm going to apologize in advance. But
hey, this is a great show. We love a lot of A tiers.
I don't know. I really love this one. Like, there are two reasons. One, it's like a really great like West Memphis 3 metaphor. Like one
I
of
didn't
the
think about that.
Could you explain that a little bit for people who don't know? Like me, I don't remember what that is.
The West Memphis, there was a really horrible murder of 3 little boys in West Memphis. Based on some like rumors and like it's a very long story. People have very strong opinions about this on both sides, but
yeah,
in my opinion, if you're a rational person, you believe that the 3 teenagers who were arrested were wrongfully arrested, wrongfully imprisoned for this crime. They haven't been exonerated. They all got what are called Alford pleas, where they basically get out of prison, but they're not declared innocent.
Yeah, so pretty much you're set free, but you're still seen as guilty in the eyes of everybody.
Right. And so the reason that this is very similar to that is the cops and the prosecutors in this case basically like said that because these teens were like dressing in black and had all black t-shirts and listened to Metallica and played Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
Hunter, we got to be sus about him a little bit.
And they were teenagers who thought they were innocent, made dumb teenager comments and stuff. So basically the whole town, like for the most part, went against these 3 teenagers and wrongfully, in my opinion, and I think it's the right opinion, were wrongfully convicted.
Yeah, and I mean, we can't really know. It's a whole opinion thing. We weren't there, but you can totally see from Kerri's perspective, and probably mine too, that like where people get typecast or scapegoated as well. We need someone to fill the shoes of the person that did it because we don't want to actually do the work to actually find out who did it and actually follow evidence.
And I will say there's really no physical evidence in this case, unfortunately.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the thing is like, we've seen so many real world mirrors of things like this happening, and not even just cases like that, but like also like the Salem witch trials, which is kind of like as well. But then later in this season, you'll see, Hunter, that there's another episode that mirrors in the season real world stuff that had happened and that's still kind of happening today, and it's so real that there was controversy kind of for the episode.
We will go into it because it is a coincidence as well what happened with that episode. And the second point I really love this episode for is Willow has really strong character development. Like in this, I feel she really starts to kind of come out as a witch and express herself as a witch, and she's punished for it and her friends are punished for it. I think it's also could be a metaphor for punishment of anyone who's really
different.
I would say like most strongly being gay or lesbian or really anything other than cisgender.
Yeah.
Because the parents are like sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add, like, in Willow wanted to probably come out as like a witch and like have her mom kind of like respect that and like accept her for who she was, and I don't think she get that at all.
I think even afterwards she doesn't really get that.
It's kind of lame that a little bit of the show. I wish the show could have done a little bit better as like bringing. It's not really necessary, but it could have been cool to see Willow's parents and Xander's parents and stuff be a little bit more developed. Like do we ever see Willow's dad? I don't think we ever do. But we see Willow's mom and we see Xander's parents at some point. But yeah, it's not really developed or anything like that.
Kerri has swayed me over to an A tier with her because it didn't like the West Memphis 3 tie-in never came up to me, and I don't know why. That's brilliant. By the way, for the full story, there is a 2-part documentary on HBO that came out, I want to say in like 2005 or 2006, called Paradise Lost.
Yeah,
it goes into detail about everything, and it is a very very like
that's probably one. It's probably one like the OJ one that's it is gonna piss me off. I'm sure
it will, and it is one of the gold standard true crime documentaries.
And I gotta check it out. Okay.
And was really and a lot of musicians and stuff and actors were really responsible for helping to bring that documentary to the table. Yeah, they did a bunch of benefit concerts and stuff. So.
That's so cool. Also, check out the Jinx. That's a pretty good one too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and like I didn't really put the connection of like coming out to like Willow and coming out like that. Maybe if I go back and rewatch it with that in mind, maybe it'll become so much better, because I couldn't put those two together until Kerri brought it up, and I'm like, now I see it.
But Hunter, I don't really blame you because this is your first watch. A lot of the times when I watch stuff, I'm not like, okay, what are the themes? Okay, what's this? I'm like trying to get a sense of the story, trying to figure out what's going on. And so we've seen this a lot of times. We can kind of contextualize this in our heads as we're thinking about the episode. Like, okay, well, that happens. So as on a first watch, we definitely don't blame you for doing that. Just like we were talking about on our Get Out episode. Check that out. That was really fun. We were like coming up with like, oh, you can think about this. We did the same thing with Nope. And we were just like all pinging off of each other like, oh, well, but what?
A lot of Jordan movies have that effect on you.
Yeah.
All right, so we move on back to Kerri for her next selection.
Oh Lord, what am I gonna do? Shoot!
You can't do Beauty and the Beast, Band Candy, or Gingerbread.
I don't know if I want to just go with my S tier.
A Band-Aid off.
God, these are all so good. And you know what? I'm gonna. Something wrong?
No.
Okay. I'll go with one of my B tier to try to fill out this B tier.
All right.
People may have totally opposite opinions, and that's okay because this is still a really good episode. But I would put Amends in the B tier. This is the episode with the first evil angels basically being tortured, seeing visions of these people he killed in the past, including we get a Jenny Calendar cameo.
Yeah.
Her, but it's really fun. This episode really is fantastic because it kind of has some really sweet moments, like Joyce and Faith spend Christmas together. Buffy, Angel's like ready to kill himself, and the snow like prevents the sun from coming up, and it is a really, really sweet episode. just maybe like besides those sweet moments, I don't super love the rest of it. I don't know, and maybe that's I don't want to say why, but I don't know. I'm putting it in B tier because I'm trying to put at least one episode in B tier, but it's very difficult.
Fair enough. Chad?
Yeah, this is awkward. This is my S tier.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Wow.
The reason why, when she said B tier, I was like, is this the episode that I thought it was? And then, yeah, as she was talking, I was like, no, yeah, it definitely is. I understand where she's coming from because there's a lot of stuff, and there's some foreshadowing in later seasons from aspects of this season that I think Kerri wasn't trying to spoil anything. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. But like, just that whole thing about it being Christmas, Angel feels like really useless, like he's been tormented by this evil entity, and it's trying to get in his head, and it succeeds. And then Angel like wants to basically kill himself because he's like, this is the only way out. And then you like, and you'll get this episode almost, and it has before, makes me cry every single time at the end of it because of what happens whether the snow comes, because Buffy's just trying to get him not to go about it, like go into the sun and just disappear forever. And then the snow comes, and then it's like there's someone out there like waiting for you. There's someone out there that knows that you have more to do on this plane of existence. And I love stuff like that where people, but I guess also vampires, just like get told that they're worth something. They're not worthless, and they're valuable. And I think because of that, we get a lot of great Angel stuff later where he actually has an arc and gets to, kind of go on a redemption path. And it's because of this episode that, he kind of realizes that, I guess. And I don't know. That's the reason why this one is S tier. I'm interested to what you guys have for S tier next then. Because and I understand where Kerri is coming from, because it's that like moment and a lot of the Angel stuff that happens in this episode. I'm blanking on a lot of the rest of the episode, but I always love watching that episode because of that moment, and it's so strong for me that it became my S tier. So I'm interested to see where this lands, because she did B tier, I did S tier. So wherever Hunter puts it could make it in S, A, or B. And I don't think it could go to C with my S, but I'm very interested not only where this lands, but what you guys say for S, because I love a lot of other episodes, and I may agree. I don't know, but I do love this one. So. Hunter, what do you like for Amends?
So, Amends is my favorite ending scene of the season so far. I like the interaction between Buffy and Angel. I think the actors have amazing chemistry. But I don't remember a lot else. Like, I remember how powerful that scene is, and it's a very powerful scene. I would put it in probably A tier, if I'm being honest. Okay. Just like right down the middle between S and B. I'd put it right in A, because it's got a great closing scene, but I don't remember a lot from it.
That's totally fair. So I think because of that, it'll end up in a strong A. Okay. And I'm fine with that. So, very interested to see what else comes at S. Not that these aren't great episodes, but I'm like, interesting. Okay. Because I didn't know. Kerri and I, a lot of the times, will end up being on very similar pages.
Yeah.
With these episodes, so it's very interesting. Not that this was an S for me, and that, but that it was a B for her. So it's like, kind of interesting. And then you met us in the middle with an A on it, and so it's just very interesting. Like, check that episode out for that ending. But is the rest of the episode great? Who knows?
Yeah. All right. So, I believe it's on you, Chad. Correct?
I believe it is.
Because I have my S tier picked out as well for my turn, so I can't wait to talk about that one.
Yeah. Well, I'll go with this one episode that I think is very, 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 very interesting. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is an S tier for somebody. I think it's highly ranked for me, but I'm going to go with The Wish.
Okay.
This is another character that gets introduced that may stay on for a bit. And it's Emma Caulfield as Anya or Anyanka. She is a vengeance demon. And she's just introduced as like a regular school girl, a classmate, and then all of a sudden, wait a second, it's Cordelia that's making the wish, right?
Yes.
Cordelia's making a wish, and she wishes Buffy never came to Sunnydale, and then as soon as Anya turns around, she's got this real ugly looking demon face, and she goes, "Granted," or whatever, and and then everything else just like turns into way different. And I love when Buffy does these kinds of episodes where it goes, now everything's different, and how does this recontextualize what you're used to? Yeah. And there's other episodes that do this in different ways, but this is like one of the first where it's like, this is a world where vampires are like way even more prevalent than they were. They're kind of like running amok. A lot of people are now vampires in this world because Buffy wasn't there to protect them. She's still like a slayer, but she's like a really like dark kind of uncaring slayer, and you can kind of
see almost like Faith in a way is what I got. She's someone who grew up trained to be a slayer, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and then you can kind of see, because but like Cordelia might not know a lot of this, but we as the audience who love these characters can see that Buffy's friends make up a lot of what makes her her. Like they keep her on like this path that she goes on to be the great character that we know and love, Buffy Summers. And because of this episode, you do learn a lot of that really cool stuff. And you just have like really fun surprises where you're like, how is this different? You find out that Xander and Willow are both vampires, and they're
still
all
together, which is hilarious.
They're still together. They like are. It's weird because like vampires have this like weird kind of sexuality where it's kind of fluid, and she has a pet that we learn is Angel. Because he's the good vampire that they get and they trap, and they just treat him like a puppy.
Yeah.
They kind of abuse actually because they're evil. The Master's still alive.
I love seeing him again. I love the Master. It's amazing.
Yeah. So that's interesting to see him still there. But yeah, Buffy is she doesn't really care. She's there to kill vampires, and if somebody she knows, or like a innocent bystander gets killed, she'll probably try to stop it from happening. But if it happens, it's really not her problem. She's there to kill a bunch of whatever. So she's just a very different slayer, and you can kind of see this dynamic with like you said, Faith and stuff like that, where it's like a very different kind of slayer that we'll get into more Faith when we get to other episode. Yeah. But I love the way they recontextualize all this. Buffy's apparently like from Cleveland, I guess, or she went to Cleveland.
Yeah,
which
was based in Cleveland.
And this is I gotta say, one of the coolest things about this episode is not just Buffy being different, but Vampire Willow being different. This is a really fun theme that we see, and we might see another time, where Willow kind of plays different kind of little characters and stuff, like exactly how Xander was in the pack, but better. This time it's just interested to see just how like confident she is, and just like really like different. Like she's so reserved as like little Willow Rosenberg, and you know she comes out
Yeah.
of her shell as her character grows. But to see her so drastically different, like in season 3, is just really fun. And yeah, it's one of my favorite parts. But yeah, I'll let you talk, Hunter, since
Okay.
Kerri is still busy. Don't be sorry.
So for me, this was actually lower until I started
Oh,
remembering all the
A
stuff.
tier. Sorry, I didn't even say a tier.
Oh,
A
A
tier.
tier. Okay.
Yeah.
So this was lower on my list to begin with on my first rewatch or my first watch. But the more I talk about it, the more I remember so many great lines. Like the funniest Cordelia line is in this episode where she's like, she sees Xander and Willow together, and she's like, even in an alternate dimension, you're still together. I can't win.
Yeah. Right.
This episode is just so fun, man. There is
Actually, Hunter, I'm gonna say S tier because I've just remembered that my S tier wasn't taken. So I'm gonna
Gosh, you're
pop
going
this one up
S-tier?
to S tier and see what happens to it. But continue.
Okay. I can't put it in S tier because there is an episode I love more, but it's just for
Fair.
a personal reason more than because all these episodes are really good. It's not a terrible episode. I'd
No
probably
worries.
put this one. I'd probably put this one high A. We keep saying A, but there's nothing we can do about it. These episodes are so good.
They are.
I like the different dynamics, and the reason why I was so tough on the Xander episode in the pack is because it felt completely different than the character we've come to know. I'm okay with this Willow character because one, it's set up in an alternate dimension where it's like this is what could happen, but it didn't change what I thought Willow was. It didn't change her character completely. It's just now she's more confident in herself. Instead of being so shy, she's able to express herself a lot more, which is what Willow would do if she gained more confidence. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
just showed her just her confidence level higher instead of in the pack, which I know it's, under the influence, but that completely changed who Xander was.
I
You know what I'm saying?
totally see what you're saying, and I totally agree. That's why I said it's a better version of that kind of episode and kind of dynamic where you see one character kind of the complete opposite of what they were. And there's later in the season, there's a fantastic Xander episode you're going to see. That's one of my favorite episodes ever. And there's another one that's a very Willow heavy episode that is kind of similar to what we're seeing here in The Wish with her character. And I'm very excited for you to see those two episodes and to talk about them later. Kerri, did you have?
I'd probably put this in an A tier.
You said A tier, Hunter,
Yeah.
and Kerri also just said A tier. Did you have anything you wanted to say about it?
No, sorry. I really like Cordelia's character.
We'll let Kerri briefly discuss The Wish after she comes back, which is fun.
Yeah.
But we can move on to another episode. Who is it? Kerri next or you next?
It's me.
Perfect.
I'm gonna go with my S tier for the episode, or for the this episode. I'm gonna go with Lover's Walk. Is one of my favorite episodes.
Nice.
I have multiple reasons. One, the return of Spike, one of my favorite characters. I love this Spike of like he lost Drew and he doesn't know what to do with himself. He is like down on his luck.
Right?
Yes. So he is just down on his luck. Like Willow having to like talk to him about love is amazing, and then you have that connected with her and Xander at the end of the episode where they kiss, and then everyone finds out. So again, the consequences. But I love this episode because they tie in the problems with Spike and kind of the tension between Xander and Willow of like, should we, shouldn't we? This is wrong. I know it's wrong, but the whole idea of love and kind of connecting it over one, where it's like, it's not just a side plot anymore. Like it's brought to the forefront, and it's brought to the forefront because of Spike. And even Spike has a line to him where he's like, you guys are in love, but you want to hide it. I don't have that problem. I need truth. You guys don't see it yet.
I have the line right here, and I was going to bring it up. I may be love's bitch, but at least I'm man enough to admit it.
Admit it. Yes. I love that line so much. So I'm
Me
putting this
too.
S here.
Yeah, Spike quotes, as you'll see, are some of the best, some of the funniest, and
Yes.
most fun. And this is a great one. And I'm glad you brought up this episode because I do love this episode as well. The common theme of love, what it does to you, that it's amazing, but also terrible at the same time. Different characters like Buffy and Angel are like kind of trying to figure out their relationship, you know, like Xander and Willow and all this other stuff. I think aren't they still kind of together? The Xander and Willow you're talking about? That was the whole kind of deal.
Because Oz and Cordelia.
That's right.
Walk in on them
Before this,
in this episode, I thought
it is in this episode. That's
right. Because Willow is kidnapped by Spike.
Now I'm remembering. Right, exactly. So so you have like all of these different like lovers quarrels and stuff happening and just different dynamics of people in love. And like you said, I love that Spike returns and Spike actually like puts this in there that said like you can't escape it. You like it or not, your love's bitch, but you have to admit it and you have to figure it out. And he says all that.
That he said that to Buffy, who hates him, but he was like, I see the tension between you two. Like, just do something already.
Yeah. And it's like this evil guy that comes back that you're like, this is like a villain of the show, and he's coming back teaching Buffy about love. And
yes, that's amazing.
Spike is such a fantastic character. And I'm glad that he's like your favorite because he's just one of the most interesting things of the show.
Yeah.
And even though Joss really didn't want him to stay, like he wanted to kill Spike off pretty early. He became such a. In fact, Joss was pretty angry about it. That Spike got so popular that he had to keep him on because of ratings and stuff like that.
Yes.
But because he was like, well, fine, I have to write Spike in here. He became one of the best characters of the show. I won't reveal how long he stays on the show, but he is so great, and I love him so much. And this is a favorite one of mine as well. Since The Wish ended up in A, I'm fine with this being the S tier. So I will second that. Unless Kerri disagrees, and then I'll see what she thinks.
No, you should just make a decision, Chad.
Well, I'm interested to see what your S tier is.
So one for The Wish, I just wanted to say that has a lot of Cordelia development because she starts this episode really heartbroken. And she ends it. This is like Cordelia. I think really one of the first solely Cordelia-centric episodes. We've seen like Cordelia and Xander. We've seen Cordelia and Buffy. This is really all about Cordelia. She is the hero. In this one, she does, she's kind of screwed up the world, but it's not really her fault, and she saves it again. It helps her come to terms with finding Willow and Xander cheating. And I know she kind of ends it in a much better place. She kind of learns how to be she doesn't return quite to where she started at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
She's like a good mix of the two. She's like very strong and can still be very mean when she wants to, but she knows the importance of saving the world and, sacrificing.
Doesn't she end the episode with like, kind of like, the bitch is back kind of a deal? Like, I was like,
this episode is amazing because the necklace gets destroyed. So like, the warlock or whatever who sets it on doesn't have powers anymore. And like, Cordy is like saying like she wishes Buffy wasn't born. She wished that Xander died. She's like, granted. Like nothing happened. She's like, oh well.
And then she's forced to basically kind of just live there and be human. Yeah. So it's just interesting. It's another interesting thing that you'll see later. Stuff about her.
For Lover's Walk, I would put that in A tier Spike is like the saving grace of this episode. He is hilarious and awesome, and he's amazing as always. I love the things he points out about how Buffy and Angel can never be friends. There's too much love between them.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're gonna do for S tier.
Okay.
I'm gonna say A tier for Lovers Walk.
I wonder, it might be totally different.
It might be, but I'm sorry, Hunter. I think I might know what she's doing, and I might agree with her.
That's a bold guess too.
Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 more episodes, so
yeah. All right, Kerri, back to you.
Okay, so I'll do this quickly because I'm gonna have to take that stuff out of the oven. I'll do my S tier so Chad can decide whether or not he likes it. It's Faith, Hope, and Trick.
Lovers Walk S tier.
So put Lovers Walk in S tier. My S tier would be Faith, Hope, and Trick. You guys can talk about that episode and where you would place it.
Do you want to start on that one, Hunter, since you watched it most recently?
Yeah. So this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is the episode that Faith debuts in, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He's in the title.
As I said, I love Faith as a character. Doesn't help that she's my type of chick that I fall over heels for. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
I want to throw in something real quick because I have another friend who's trying to watch this show from the beginning, and I don't think he's met Faith yet, but he absolutely loves Willow because she's not Faith, even though she can't, like the actress Allison Hannigan can be Faith-like if given that type of character switch, but she's very like sweet and not Faith-like. So it's so fun that you're like the complete opposite. Where you're like, Faith is my type. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's also played by Faith is played by Elizabeth, who, funny enough, I saw her in another Joss Whedon project before this. She was in a show called Dollhouse. Mm-hmm. Yes. Dollhouse is a really interesting show that got canceled way too soon, in my opinion.
It did, yeah.
So did Firefly. So did Firefly, yeah. I actually really liked this episode. I probably wouldn't put it in S tier, if I'm being honest. I'd probably go A tier. We have a lot of A tiers this episode, this season.
It's great, though. It's a great season.
Oh, yeah. Chad?
Yeah.
I'm going to turn and explain myself if you want.
Well, let me add one more thing that I forgot from Lovers Walk because this is not a bad episode by any means. I do really like it. I'm glad it's Kerri's S tier, and I would put it in A tier. But Lovers Walk also, I believe, has the beginning of the Spike Joyce relationship. That's some of the best scenes that you wouldn't ever expect those two to really hit it off, and then even Buffy's so confused. Like she comes in like, what?
She walks in and Spike is drinking tea. I died laughing. And telling Joyce his love problems.
Just to see that whole thing where it's like, talking to Joyce about like getting her like womanly advice and why Drew left him and stuff like that. It's just like one of the best things ever. But Kerri, you don't have to explain yourself, but please tell us why you love Faith, Hope, and Trick so much.
I had a really hard time choosing an S tier for this season because I think a lot of the ones we put in A and at least one more I would like to put in A could have potentially bumped into S tier for me. This one, I think overall though, S tier for me because we get to meet Faith and she comes in. I love how she's introduced. Buffy goes out to slay the vampire, do her usual thing. Faith's already fucking taking care of business.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, hey, B. Like, I'm here. I'm Faith.
Hey, B.
5 by 5.
I like that this episode, I was mistaken when I threw out my first episode. This, as Chad corrected me, is the episode that's the scene where Buffy finally lets go of Angel. And puts the ring down and Angel comes back. And I don't know, that's such a beautiful moment. And like combined with all the Faith stuff, the other thing I love is we get to see this is rare. We get to see Faith being very vulnerable. She's come to Sunnydale to escape the vampire that killed her watcher, Mr. Trick, or no,
Kissing
Toast. And Buffy helps convince her to stand up and face him. And she's so scared. She's so terrified. We don't know Faith that well yet, but this is a position we almost never see Faith in. And I think it's just really great because Faith does overcome that, and they wind up killing Kakistos. And just all of that combined, I think, makes, in this first half of the season, for me, that's the strongest episode.
Shit, dude. Okay, and now I see what she's saying about S tier. I see high A, S. I'd say if Hunter's
okay with this one an S tier, if I'm being honest.
If Hunter's willing to flip them, then I'd be okay with an S tier as well. But about the episode specifically, that's true. That Faith both shows how vulnerable she can be, but also because we see so many different sides to Faith throughout the series. Throughout the series at least. She's such a great character, and it just shows she in The Wish you get to see a different side of Buffy, but in here you get to see the contrast between Buffy and Faith, and you get to see a lot more of that later on. But in this, you can see how Faith shows up. She's so determined to get her man that she's beating really excessively up on one of the things.
Yeah,
not a thing that Buffy does. She'll stake them if they need to be staked, and then she'll move on. And Faith is going hard on this one enemy out of anger, and you can see that already. Faith, probably because of lack of training, whatever, just the way she was raised. She's just such a different. She doesn't have this solid friend group that Buffy does, and so she's kind of more unhinged a lot of the times. And in this episode, she's beating down on one, and Buffy's getting taken over by a couple of them that she could be helping Buffy, but instead she's so in her mind
still taking out her anger on one of them. Yeah.
But I love all the other things that Kerri said. She's introduction of Faith. I keep forgetting that, I brought up earlier that this is the episode where she lets go, puts the ring down, leaves, and then he comes back. I love that moment so much. So I'm fine with this in S tier or high A tier. So Hunter.
Yeah.
Hunter, what do you think about this episode?
After listening to the arguments, I am okay with putting this in S tier. I just forgot a lot that happened because I watched it further back because I stopped for a little while, then came back and watched the episodes that I missed. But I also remember how funny this episode was, especially when it comes to the first meeting of Xander and Cordelia, and the whole idea of her Xander being a guy, being was this from the new too? And Cordelia giving that look you better shut up. I don't know. The comedy in this one is really great. The way that they're able to write Faith's character, as you guys brought up, as she comes in badass, I love her immediately, and then it kind of turns where you see that she's vulnerable. She is running away and she's scared, and it takes meeting Buffy in order to be I can overcome this, instead of the other way around where they both kind of learn from each other in this episode. Faith teaches Buffy of you should take your training more seriously, and you need to focus on the perfect balance of you have to be a Slayer first because the world is at stake. But also on the other hand, Buffy teaches Faith that it's okay to ask for help, it's okay to receive help, and it's okay to rely on friends if you need them as well. So the whole idea of they both learn something from each other, I love when shows do that.
That's a fantastic point. Yeah, Buffy needs to learn how to hone.
Yeah, well, and I think Faith is really the reason that Buffy eventually lets go of Angel, because she sees Faith overcome her obstacle
Yeah.
and surpass it,
Great
and
point.
realizes that she has the strength to do the same.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good point. Great.
Yeah.
So, this
So
is a list tier episode. Good point.
I like when we meet Mr. Trick and what is his name? I'm sorry.
Keystos.
Yeah, Kakistos. I thought he was gonna be the main villain. So when he died quickly, I was like, oh, okay. So I guess he's not the main villain.
You're like, wait, what? This is like the oldest vampire. His
And
his
he just
hands are cloven.
Well, Hunter has met the main villain, but I
Yeah,
don't
he
know if
has.
you know he's the main villain yet.
I think there's hints in specific episodes because I was reading through some of the things and I was like, oh wait, has he been kind of introduced as the big villain or not?
I'm pretty sure it's the mayor, but I could be wrong.
Okay, we'll say since you think it's the mayor that you're right. You'll see more from the mayor later on, and you'll see more of like mayor-like characters and stuff. But yeah.
By the way, Mr. Trick, I love him as a character.
Yeah,
He is so charismatic. It's not even funny, man.
This is the one where he goes to the drive-thru, right?
Drive-thru. He says, "Oh shit, now I'm hungry," and he pulls the guy in the inside, and all you see is the guy's legs like out the window.
That's great. I gotta watch the show again
Such
soon.
a good episode.
Whose turn is it?
I believe it's yours, Chad.
Yours.
Mine. Okay. I'm gonna go with the first one. I'm gonna go with Anne.
Okay.
Before Kerri said her S, I thought maybe this could be her S because there are some like really fantastic themes in this. The end of season 2, Buffy leaves Sunnydale because she's just so heartbroken at what she had to do. She can't even stand to be around anyone. She just wants to go out on her own, and it's like really like, sad and a little bit sappy. I think she leaves to like some sort of like song and stuff like
Sarah
that.
McLachlan song, I think.
And this episode shows her, like you see, this episode shows her in a different place. Is she in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Los Angeles.
And she took a bus to LA, and she's now working as a waitress. And you see like she's kind of being taken advantage of. Like people are like commenting on her, and I think like spanking her and doing shit
Slapping
like
her
that.
ass. That was weird.
But then you sit there and you're like, well, is Buffy going to take that? Oh yeah, she's going to take that because she can't be that person that she was, at this time. And, so it's just interesting to see Buffy take an episode to kind of go reflect on what happened, not fully get over it, but like realize that she's still needed and stuff like that. Don't they also have characters trying to fight vampires without Buffy in this episode, or no?
Yeah, that's the way the episode opens. Is like Oz, Willow, and Xander Cordelia are trying to fight off the vampire, and like he just escapes, and we never know what happens to him. So he's out there somewhere.
I think there's one point where Oz tries to do that throwing thing, and it just
it just completely misses.
It doesn't even do a spin. And it's just really funny to see the difference between them all trying to get one vampire versus Buffy like
taking out 7 at a time.
Yeah. And anyways, so back in her in LA, we get to see she starts to see like people disappearing and stuff like that. And there's a character that you saw previously in Lie to Me that shows up again here, and she's going by a different name. She's got a boyfriend. He disappears, and then
that's the same one where it's like the cult of vampire lovers or whatever.
Same character.
And she's going by a different name, but Buffy recognizes her, or she recognizes Buffy, and then they talk, and then so Buffy goes on detective mode by herself, and she like figures out what's going on, and she actually goes into this little pit thing when she finds out, and she's actually in hell, they say, and she gets or like a version of hell, and she gets trapped there. And then it's like, I like this part where she's like there, no one knows who she is, and she's just another, I'm no one. And then when she refuses to say she's no one, she goes, "Hi, I'm Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you are." I just love that moment so much. I love to see her kicking all these people's ass and just showing all these people that they can band together with her and escape, and actually, like, they are somebody. Like I said, when someone tries to tell you you're worthless and the show says, no, you're not, you are someone, you are worth something. And this episode does that. So I would put this at an A tier. I really like this episode, and Buffy finds herself again as she decides to go back home.
My question is, how many more can we put in A tier? Because I have at least one more I want to get in A tier, or are we just not?
There's no limit on it on A tier.
And I'll say this is an A tier. I agree with exactly what Chad said. I don't know. This is a great episode. I love how, we start with Buffy. She's really broken, and she's just letting people push her around. She's determined not to fight back against anyone. And she finally kind of relearns her worth, and begins to start sticking up for herself again and for other people.
You're not supposed to fight back. It's like one of the things the guys keep saying, like, but you don't fight back. And that guy, actually, that actor we see come back, I think, in a different role at some point, doesn't he?
He is definitely in Angel.
He's in another show as a different character. And you'll see a lot of times there will be specific actors that will show up in different roles, but they're like completely different. Like I will say an actor who shows up later in the season, I believe, in a different kind of role, was the guy who played the judge. Yeah. He shows up in a different episode in this season, but as a different character. It's not the judge coming back.
Yeah. So, like, for me, I'm not even sure if it's a spoiler or not, but on Amazon Prime Video, when you're going down to the episodes and you have, like, because it's like the recommended for you down, you click down and you see Angel, and it's the Angel show, and on the background you see Cordelia, and I'm like, oh, hey, I guess she's in this show now.
So, at some point, Angel and Cordelia have a show.
It's interesting because as a person who's coming out when both shows are complete and you can see that there's another show, like if you're doing any sort of research, I would recommend not really doing research if you can. So don't try to look around for
I'm
stuff,
not.
But it's not really that big of a deal to see what happens with the show, and we won't spoil when that show takes place and stuff like that. But those two characters are really great in that show.
Yes. Oh my god.
And we really need to do a rewatch of Angel because I love that one. And Hunter, if you love Buffy, you get to the end and you decide you want to go on to Angel, because I will say Angel doesn't take place at the very end of Buffy. They kind of like intermingle a little bit.
Okay.
So, but we can talk
when you get there.
When you get there, you can get there. We can talk about.
We definitely have to do an Angel ranking series, right?
Because
this.
For that one, we're definitely going to need to do a rewatch because we have not seen Angel as much as we've seen Buffy.
It's going to be a while, though, if we're being honest. We still got to get 7 seasons, so
no worries. What did you think of the episode, though?
I absolutely love this episode. It was a great opening episode for a season, and what I love is it has the idea of codependency, which I love. Of what's her name, Lily? I believe her name is.
Yeah.
She so much relies on her boyfriend for everything that when he gets captured, she doesn't know what to do with herself. She doesn't know, if she has the strength in her to do it, which is what I've noticed of when you're with someone for so long or you go from relationship to relationship, you kind of have a codependency of well, what do I do if I'm alone and I can't get somebody, or, someone gets taken from me or whatever. So the fact that at the end, when they're trapped, and Buffy tells Lily, "Look, you can do this. I believe in you." When they're under the stairs, it's such a great scene because it's like, kind of breaking that mold of like, no, you can do this. You can, do things by yourself and not rely on everybody or somebody so much that's how they end up escaping, is because she's able to take everybody up. So Lily does play a big part in this episode, which I love.
Yeah, and then Lily actually says, "I like the name Anne. Can I have that?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really sweet moment with those two characters. But then also, yeah, like I think also Buffy helping Lily maybe helped her kind of like realize that
She can do it
she
on her own
can
as
do
well.
this. Yeah, she can get over things that she never thought she could. So yeah, that's a really great point, Hunter.
Yeah, so we'll put Anne at the A tier. We have a lot of A tiers, but that's A-okay.
We love this show.
That's what I was trying to say at the beginning.
It's an
though,
S tier
is
show.
This is like an A tier season. Like
Yeah.
it's so hard to rank any of the episodes lower than that.
And I will say personally, I would never put any season below a B tier. Personally, because I love every season. Yeah. I would probably put every season in S tier.
So whose turn is it next? Is it Chad or is it mine?
Your turn. Chad just did Anne, right?
Yes, I did Anne.
So your turn.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with my what would have been my C tier episode, B, and I'm gonna go with Dead Man's Party.
That's what I thought it was.
And the reason I say this is because I love that Buffy has consequences for her actions, and that kind of plays throughout the season. I hate how her friends treat her. They treat her like complete shit. And to be fair, you could see their side, but you have to understand what she was going through. It's the perspective thing. It's like Xander knows exactly what happened. He knows bits and pieces of it, but he had no right to yell at her and embarrass her the way he did. And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way with this episode a lot. Is like, look, Buffy knows that she was in the wrong, and we know what she did was wrong. But the fact that she comes back, she makes him or trying to make amends, and her friends are constantly dogging on her. I just don't like that. So I'm putting this in like a B tier.
I think it's actually because you can look at it from different perspectives. Like if I'm not saying you're wrong at all. Yeah, I'm sure they do. It's been a while since I've seen the episode. I'm sure they don't treat her that great when she comes back. If you look at it from her perspective, you know why she left. She had to kill the person that she loves, who right before she killed him was fine again and was like the person that she loved. So she didn't kill this monster. She killed the love of her life. And she left, had a whole arc, whatever, growth, came back. But to them, she just kind of left them in the dust, and they don't know this whole thing about Angel, that, she was fine. So they're like, oh, good, you killed Angelus that was tormenting us and killed Giles's lover and just did all this crazy shit. And it's like they're like, good, but why did you take off? And like we could have died. So I kind of see it from both perspectives. But I do love this episode for different reasons. It's just a fun one. It's really a bottle episode, not really, but it's like one where it takes place at the Summers home a lot, and the dead things come back, and it's like it's like a Stephen King, like sometimes they come back kind of a deal, or a Pet Cemetery kind of thing, where it's a mask controlling everything and it's bringing everything back. Only Giles really knows about it. And doesn't he have a line where he says like "stupid Americans" or something like that? Or
he's like, "Oh, look at my pretty mask. It raises the dead."
Yeah. He's very condescending in this episode. I love it.
There's some fun stuff in the episode. Yeah. I can totally see why some of it rubbed Hunter the wrong way. But I do think it's a very fun one. We do get to see Buffy's return. She's still like fiddling with the idea of leaving again, which is really interesting, that she gets there and people are treating her poorly, and she's like, maybe this was a bad idea. And then, it breaks my heart every single time when she's like packing the bag up and you're like, no, Buffy, don't do that. Oh, you're going to annoy everybody. and then Joyce comes back. She's like, "Are you kidding me?" Was it Joyce and Willow?
Yeah, it's Joyce and Willow. To be fair, though, what did they expect? I mean, they treated her like shit this entire episode. You expect her not to leave?
I love how Buffy-oriented Hunter is. He's like, "Fuck all you people.
Fuck
You
all
don't
y'all."
treat my Buffy that way."
Kerri?
Yeah, I would be. Did you say what tier?
And also, rest in peace, Pat.
What
But tier, I'm A.
I would be fine with putting this in B tier.
Okay.
There's a lot of things I love about it.
Hi,
like
B.
Giles is really, really funny in this episode.
Giles is the best part of this episode.
You know, and I think the episode makes sense. And yeah, it's hard to see it from the friend's perspective because you, like Chad said, you know everything that Buffy went through. And I forgot in Faith, Hope, and Trick, it's not until Faith, Hope, and Trick that Buffy finally opens up and tells Willow and Giles like what actually happened.
Like first she tells them that he was cured.
Yeah.
She doesn't hear, but later she tells them that he was cured before she killed him.
Yeah.
At the end of one of the episodes later than
Revelations.
Faith, Hope, and Trick.
Yes. And then another episode they find out about, which we haven't gotten to, but they find out about Angel's return. So there's two little things
that's
that
right.
happen.
That's Revelations.
Yeah.
Where they find out that he's alive.
That she actually tells them. Yeah, and this episode is really fun. But you know, just compared to the rest, maybe not as strong. I don't know. I mean, it's hard.
Sure.
I would be fine with B tier though.
Same.
Yeah. All right, we move back on to Kerri. I believe we have 2 episodes remaining?
I think so.
Revelations and Homecoming.
Homecoming, and I'm gonna choose Homecoming.
Okay.
Because that's the one I definitely wanted to put into A tier. I love this episode. I think it's really fun. We kind of see Buffy still kind of trying to fit back in with her friends. As soon as she's finally feeling like she fit back in, Faith comes and kind of disrupts everything. Buffy still feels like she has to, I don't know, like prove something so she competes with Cordelia to win Homecoming Queen. By fate of circumstance, to try to get them to make friends again. The limo that everyone was supposed to be in is given just to Buffy and Cordelia. Disaster because Slayer Fest 98 is going on.
Oh my god.
Something that Mr. Trick has set up. He hires a whole bunch of assassins to try to kill Buffy and Faith. And mistakenly kidnaps Buffy and Cordelia. We get to see Cordelia kind of, you know, being like, I'll use a frying pan. I'm getting to Homecoming. I'm being named Homecoming Queen. She's like, Buffy, this may be the thing that you're good at, but I'm the Homecoming Queen. I don't know. It's nice. I think it's
you sound like you know.
I think it's a little bit of a night. You know, we had the first 2 seasons. Buffy's very much like, oh, I want to be normal. I want to just be, you know, a teenager.
Yes.
This is kind of like, you know, we're getting less of that. This is an episode where we kind of see that come up again, but it's a little bit more about Buffy's kind of just trying to, I don't know, kind of like prove herself or, you know, get in with her friends a little bit better again, or like prove that she mattered in high school, besides slaying.
Yeah, like this episode, I do agree with, as Kerri was talking about it, there's so much more in this episode than I remembered even. Because I just remembered the Slayer Fest 98, which is still great on its own, but like all the other stuff, like the you know, the Buffy and Cordelia fighting over who's going to become the queen, it's because Cordelia's being an asshole, and then Buffy's like, know what? I used to be like the queen of my school. I was so popular, and I'm not going to let you do this anymore. I'm gonna be the one, and it's just fun to see, like, because Cordelia is so good at it, and Buffy's trying, but yeah, like Kerri said, you know, we get to see this a lot with Buffy wanting to be normal, wanting to have balance between her Slayer duties and just being a normal girl. You know, she did it with cheerleading, She did it when, at the very end with Prophecy Girl, when she's like, I just want to go to a dance. I don't want to die. And then this episode, and then it's just such a really cool twist, like Kerri said, that it ends up being Buffy and Cordelia, not Buffy and Faith, that they thought, even though it's a smart thing that they did to hijack that limo and stuff like that. And it's a really cool sequence to see like Cordelia be like, I'm going to use my,
my frying pan to.
Yeah, but like her desire to, like, I'm not going to let all this evil stop me from getting to be the queen. And she's like one of those where she's like, this is all I have kind of a deal. And then, Buffy's like, this is all I have because, everything else is just killing whatever. But
Yeah.
Anyways, it was a great episode. Great point, Kerri. What do you think, Hunter?
Yeah, I put this in A. A. This is also an episode where I love the ending because it's where you finally get Buffy and Willow at the cafe shop or whatever, and they're just trading insults back and forth with each other.
Yeah,
like troublemaker and like they're just like finally they're on an understanding level of like Willow knows what happened and now they can move past it. I also love that like we have a huge montage of like them trying to sway voters of like
brownies, cupcakes,
the brownies and then the muffins, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and like bigger posters. And
Cordelia shows up with like a trash can or something for them to throw away.
She takes the muffin and throws it away, and then gives them a pack of muffins in a container. They're just like trying to up each other. It's hilarious.
The other thing that I wanted to add that I just read when I was reading stuff about the episode that's really funny is that at the very end of the episode, neither becomes homecoming queen.
Yeah.
It's someone else, and they're like, "What the?"
Yeah.
The funny part is like they're like,
"Do you remember who wins? What's her name?"
It's no one who's like really in the show.
That's why I'm like, what's her name?
Yeah, I don't remember either, but I know it was like the two other ones because they announced it was a tie, and they're like, oh, okay, so it's gonna be Buffy and Cordelia. Like, nope, it's two other people. And what's funny is like the joke is set up beforehand because they like finally get to the dance and they're like talking about like everything we've been through. This whole prom queen thing means everything, so let's see who wins. And they just immediately both lose.
Yeah. That's hilarious. They're the Rocky of this episode.
And when they announce that it's going to be a tie, you think like, oh, it's going to be Buffy and Cordelia. No, it's not. Everyone hates them.
Welcome to a Joss Whedon show.
Yep.
All right.
So we have one more episode, I believe. That is Revelations.
Revelations. Is it my turn? Can I start with this one? All right. Revelations. I actually really love this one. High A for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one where people find out about Angel, but then you also get briefly a new Watcher for Faith that comes, and Faith's not. She's like, what the? I'm not dealing with this shit. But then so it's Gwendolyn Post. She's like this like British lady. She comes and she's trying to.
Are all Watchers British? That's my.
I think they all are actually. Yes. Oh no, actually they're not. Not all of them are. That you'll find out later. Not all of them are. I don't think Kendra's was.
I don't know if we know.
I don't know. Anyways, we know that the Watchers Council is British. Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so Gwendolyn Post comes. She's trying to get Faith in line or whatever, but you find out that she's actually the villain of the episode, and she like wants this like gauntlet thing.
The hand of glory.
The hand, yes.
Yeah.
And she wants to use it to fuck shit up. Wasn't she like disgraced from the Watchers Council? Like she was a Watcher, and then she got disgraced from them, and she like wants revenge or something like that. I don't necessarily remember all of her motivations, but she's the villain, and she goes through a lot of stuff to get this thing that Angel's like guarding or whatever. And so then you have like the dynamics where all the people, all the Scoobies find out in this episode because Xander spies that Angel's back, and they don't know that Angel's good now, right? No, they do.
Well, no, they don't really. Well, they're not. Well, Xander's kind of like he's probably evil, and I think everyone else is like he might turn evil again.
And then as soon as like Giles finds out, he's so pissed. He's like, "Why didn't you tell me that the person that killed the person I love is back?" And you understand why.
Yeah,
Buffy kept it a secret, but then you understand why they're so mad. So there's a lot of dynamics like that. It's a really like big, like overarching story thing that happens that they find out about this, and then you have this cool thing about Gwendolyn Post. I think she's a really good villain, just because like you can kind of see why she's doing what she's doing, and then just like she's so diabolical. But doesn't even Faith try to kill Angel in this?
Yeah, Xander and Faith team up and they're like,
right.
yeah, let's fucking go kill Angel, screw everyone else.
And you can kind of see stuff like this happen. I know this kind of thing that happens with Xander is why there are people, Buffy fans, who don't like Xander because he's so like
really? I didn't know that.
Because he's so hateful towards well, I mean, he does problematic things as like the typical boy character in school. I don't want to super get into all that politics and stuff with Xander, but also because he's so hateful a lot of the times towards anybody who is trying to be in a relationship or loves Buffy. I guess because he still has like this, because he had like that infatuation with her that was like a romantic love. He had a crush on her, wanted to be with her, but then he kind of got over that and started to grow a little bit more. But also now I think it's coming from a deep like love for her as like a friend, like a platonic friend. At least that's how
I got from it. Yeah,
but he does hate Angel so much, and just really anything that's like not known to be good 100% of the time or whatever.
Yeah, and this is like bringing it way far back, but doesn't Xander, Willow when in the end of the second season, Willow tells Xander to tell Buffy that they're going to try to spell and try to hold Angel off. Xander just says,
doesn't.
Willow said kick his ass.
Willow said kick his ass, that's right.
Yeah.
It's things like that Xander does when you're like, oh man, Xander.
But you can see where
he's coming from because Angel has done so much at this point. Like, does he want to risk?
Especially getting into this season, I understand why Xander is so pissed off when he, does find out that Angel's alive. And to me, I see it now as like Xander may have had a crush on Buffy in season 1, and that's why he was acting that way. Now I feel like it's more he sees Buffy as a sister that he wants to protect more than anything, and that not only the lying it hurts, but the danger that that she's possibly putting herself in is why he's so terrified of Angel being alive. Even though we kind of know he's getting better, he doesn't know that. The last thing he remembers is Angelus and the torment that he put everyone through.
Yeah.
I think Xander also, I think his hatred for Angel initially developed out of jealousy.
It was.
I think it just it's just a constant. He just once he hates Angel, he hates
someone, and that's kind of his like fundamentalist, like moral, like he's like Javert from Les Mis, where he's like, I'm gonna get this guy, and I'm not gonna ever change my mind, no matter what evidence is put in front of me. Angel's a baddie, and I know it, and I'm gonna go and actually, I'm not even gonna tell anyone, but I'm gonna go with Faith and take care of this myself without talking to anyone, because Buffy's gonna try to stop.
He's not in the right when he does what he does,
not
but I understand, as you said, why he does what he does, and I see it more of like like a brother sister type thing. Like he's so close to Buffy now that he sees it as he's afraid of her getting killed or hurt, not only just romantically, but like, possibly killed because, we, as I said, we kind of know that he's okay, but Xander doesn't. Xander doesn't know what he's possibly going to do.
And that's one of my favorite things about Xander, even though he does take it too far and he has that fundamentalist whatever, it's all out of love for his friends. Like, he is a protector. He is not one who has any sort of powers. He's not a witch like Willow. He's not a slayer like Buffy. But he's not a werewolf like Oz, but he's always that kind of guy that is did I spoil that?
What?
No, we know.
Oz is a werewolf. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Second
Was second season, right? That's right. But he is the one that is going to be there for you and protect you, and he always, and you'll see in future episodes, he will put himself in harm for other people, and that's just like what a lot of people, I feel like, who love Buffy. You can have whatever opinion on whatever characters you want, but they don't take a lot of that into account, in my opinion.
I didn't know
great things that Xander does.
Yeah, I didn't know there was people who didn't like Xander. He still is probably one of my favorite characters, but again,
Xander,
that could change later on.
Xander and one other character who you haven't met yet, hands down, most hated Buffy characters.
Whisper it.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't know that. Like, that's surprising to me, actually.
It really annoys me because I love Xander so much, but I mean, these shows are just, you can like whoever you like and hate whoever you hate, but I just feel like a lot of the times people aren't fair with it. Like, I can understand where they're coming from to an extent, but like, I never can understand how you could just go like, I hate that character. Like, he's such an important character to the show that I'm like, do you like the show if you hate one of the characters that's so prevalent?
Now I can understand hating an action. I can understand hating an action, but to me, I always love the core of Xander because as we said, he's someone who doesn't have powers, doesn't he's the human. He's our eyes into the show, but he wants to be protector so bad that. And he's also, like, we have to remember, in early seasons, he's still in high school. So it's him wanting to be protector, but also him, like, dealing with hormones and issues like that all teenagers deal with, that, like, he does dumbass shit sometimes. We all do.
That's a good point. He does dumbass shit.
I think people hate Xander because he does act like a 90s teenage boy. I mean, maybe not the most like progressive or like super nicest teenage boy, but I would say like kind of middle of the road, like average teenage boy.
Yeah, and but the thing about it is people do dislike him because of that. But just like Hunter was saying, is that it's like you're stuck on this one phase of a character and you refuse to acknowledge any growth with that character because he, I guess, pushes your buttons so early on that you're just refused to come around on him, I guess. I don't know. I love Xander so much. I identified with Xander when I was in like middle school and high school. So
Xander is me in high school. So
as a special part, I don't know if I was like problematic like that, like in ways. I didn't really have like two friends who were girls and then sometimes treat them poorly. But it is what it is. And sorry.
No, I mean, as someone. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna move on to the tier.
Oh yes, sorry, got off track.
Revelations, I would put it A easily.
Yeah, I would also put it A.
Yeah, I'd put it in A also. I like the way they handled the situation with everyone finding out that Angel's alive more than I did in Dead Man's Party, because they act the same towards Buffy, but I feel like it was even meaner in Dead Man's Party, where they were just ignoring her the whole time. They didn't really seem like they cared about her. This one, Giles is pissed, and he has a reason to be pissed, and he says it, but he doesn't put Buffy down in a way. He's like, I understand why you did it, but I'm still pissed that you didn't tell me.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit more understand. Like I think we sympathize with everyone else in this episode a little bit more because, we understand from why Buffy ran away, and it made sense because she was just so heartbroken. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like it is kind of more of a betrayal of her friends to not tell them that Angel is back after he killed so many people, and like. It's kind of like, okay, Buffy, like, why are you hiding it then? Like, and it does make sense that she does. And it's kind of nicer because we get a little bit, the resolution, I feel like, is a little bit quicker. It's not dragged out through the entire episode, but.
And also, in this episode, we do get fallout from, I believe it was the Homecoming episode where Xander and Willow kiss for the first time, right? Because they're getting ready for Homecoming dance.
Yeah, they definitely there's scenes where they kiss from the Homecoming episode up until Lovers Walk.
Yeah, and they're acting all jumpy with each other, like the slight hand movement. They're like, "What are you doing?" Like, it's just hilarious to me because that's realistic. You're in that area where Willow and Xander definitely feel guilty, so you're like, I don't know how far I can go with this, so I'm just going to stay away from you.
Yeah, I love those little dramatic, kind of soap opera things where it's like, oh, this is a forbidden romance that we have to keep secret and dramatic. That's why I love stuff like the OC and things like that, where there's always certain don't make fun of me. There's certain dynamics that happen with certain characters. You're like, oh my god, those two characters, interesting. Okay.
I mean, I can't really say anything. I grew up watching Degrassi, so
I love Degrassi. I used to watch Degrassi all the time.
Dude,
yeah,
the stuff they did in that show was wild for a 7-year-old.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it was Canadian, so I guess they have different sensibilities than our programming.
Definitely,
they got into it. I remember Kerri at one point with Degrassi was like, "Man, these kids are ridiculous."
Dude, the first episode is meeting up with a teacher who wants to molest a student, and I'm like, "Oh, you're going that far with it?"
All right.
On a week.
First episode. I'm like, whoa, that's too far now. So going way off topic, going back on topic from going way off topic. I believe we have all our episodes, correct? That is 11 episodes.
Yes. Yep.
All right, so S tier is Faith, Hope, and Trick. Then we have A tier, Band Candy, Gingerbread, Amends, The Wish, Lover's Walk, and Homecoming and Revelations. B, Dead Man's Party, and C, Beauty and the Beast.
This is a great season.
Many episodes.
This was fun. I'm excited for you to watch the other half of season 3.
Yeah.
Like I was alluding to, there's a great Willow-centric episode and a great Xander-centric episode, and then we can talk more about Xander and stuff, because it's one of the episodes that actually really shows why I love Xander. But I won't say any more because I want you to see it for the first time. And see if you really like it or not, because it's one of my favorites. So I'll throw my spoiler in there about my ranking is one of my favorites. But I'm very excited for you to watch this second half. It's such a great second half, and enjoy it, bro.
I can't wait. All right, so Chad and Kerri, where can people find you online?
I have a letterbox. It's called English Slayfest. If you wanna, we're doing our 61 days of horror. So I have a list there showing which movies we're watching for that, if you want to check that out.
Nice. Yeah, I'm doing the same thing, 61 days of horror, Halloween, whatever you want to call it. I think we're up to 12 now. And we're watching a lot of really new stuff. My letterbox is CWeb 1534. You can just Chadwick Webb. I think you can find me. Just ranking all the stuff we see. It's really fun. Plugging other things. I do a show with my buddy, the Dylan Randazzo, on the Dill Pickle Movie Network called Picture This, where every month we go through a year of Oscars. So we talk Best Pictures, and every month we'll watch all the Best Picture nominees for that year. We will talk about them, rank them, talk about actors and actresses from that year. This month we're doing 2003. We're at the tail end of our first series that we did, The Lord of the Rings, since all three of them were nominated and won one. We did 2001, 2002 in the last 2 months, and this month we're doing 2003. Very excited about that. Next month, for Spooky Month, we're doing 1991 because it's one of the few horror movies that was nominated and actually won, was The Silence of the Lambs. So that is one that some people consider one of the greatest horror movies of all time. And then other people will try to tell you it's not a horror movie, and I think they're wrong, but
how is it not a horror movie?
I agree, but some people, it's a thriller. But anyways, sorry if I made fun of you and you're watching. Please don't click off the video because of that. But yeah, so we do have a lot of fun there. I do a lot of trivia, debate over the TMG. Check out Movie Battleground. That's a really fun show with debating. Yeah, that's over on my channel, Chadwick Webb. We do a lot of rankings and stuff like that. We did Christmas, Edgar Wright, Harry Potter. All three phases of the MCU. We'll do phase 4 once that wraps up with, I believe, Wakanda Forever. And then we also are about to do Denis Villeneuve soon.
Ooh.
And we're very excited about that. But yeah, thank you, Hunter. This was fun. I love talking Buffy.
I do too. And also, I've already announced it online. So the rematch, Chad versus Kerri 2 will be happening. We'll be shooting sometime this month.
That first match was so fun because it was so close.
It was very close. So the winner of that match will go on to the gauntlet match at the Last Stand. So that could be very interesting to see which way it goes. All right, guys, if you did enjoy this, hit the like button, subscribe, and